Let me ask one more quick question before Francis takes over. I guess the key discussion in relation to the closure of the Strait of Hormuz is how permanent or long-term this is.
Absolutely.
Before we started, I was looking at the Kalshi odds, and the Kalshi odds for it being opened by 1st of May are very low. It's like low 30s, I think, as we sit here today. But June, and I think July, July 1st is like 78% or something.
Yeah, these are all the smart money here. And I deal with the smart folks all the time, and they make all the smart mistakes. Okay, so you just got to understand. I definitely understand people with 120, 150 IQs are super smart, and they go through lots of calculations. Their computers and their brains move very, very quickly, and they can make an enormous amount of money really fast. Okay? So I got that. That's not strategy. Okay, so this is, again, leaving out a whole lot of different stages here. And I don't have any money in those markets. I'm not playing the money game here because that's not what I do. I do risk assessment. Now, you're quite right though about but let me just back up one stage here, because you're trying to get to, again, this calculation like you would bet on it, all right? But let's just back up for a second. Notice that at stage 1 and stage 2, America is losing control. And we've had the illusion of control going through. You see, at each stage, I call it the illusion of precision control, because the precision weapons, they're so precise. You can marry that with this hyper-precise intelligence. We can do it now on our phones, really, with, signal chat and everything. I mean, we can do this so exquisitely. It's not just creating tactical success. It creates the illusion of escalation control when it's actually slipping away. Now, why is it slipping away? It's because you could see why when President Trump does the bombing last June, he I think for his own political purposes and from what he just said, I think he really did just want to walk away. Okay, but he himself is continuing the negotiations. He knows he can't walk away because tactical obliteration does not equal strategic stopping of the nuclear material. Just doesn't. And I suspect he knows that because he said as much as that. And now we're at the stage where, after the regime change, stage 2 of the escalation trap, now Iran is an oil hegemon. So the idea that he's going to walk away when all this enriched material is now dispersing and all those problems, on top of that, now it's an oil hegemon, and that $1.5 billion will come in every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks. You see what I mean? So now you're getting a bigger and bigger. They won't be a Godzilla, okay? But they're going to be bigger than Bambi. Maybe they'll be a bear versus Godzilla. But there won't be Godzilla. I just want to be super clear. But you've changed this. This is now, Iran is gaining power here, relative power. That's the pull here for President Trump to go to stage 3, which is likely coming in the next week or 2, not 3 months from now, but now in the near term, which I called, before the war started, the limited territorial option. And what I mean by that is we would take ground forces, and they would be limited ground forces. That's how it will be called. And they will be limited here at first.
Sorry to interrupt, Professor. But when you say limited, what's the number? What does that mean in terms of?
I do lay all this out.
Of course.
I also did it in a video briefing afterwards on March 8th that your listeners can go find on the Substack. So what we're talking about are if once you know that your opponent has become more powerful and it's about oil and gas in this transit here, you're going to try to take that power away. But your options of air power, if you could do it with air power, this would not even have happened. So you're going to be forced to go to ground power options. Same with also the nuclear material. So what is that going to look like? That's going to look like taking Karg Island. That's going to look like taking coastal areas right on the Iranian coast, right on the other side of the UAE here. So if we had a map, you would see that the Strait of Hormuz is here. That's kind of a narrow point. Dubai is here, Iran is here. But then there's the larger part of the Persian Gulf. Well, you are going to want to control this whole, at least big parts of this coast, because that's where a lot of missiles are coming from. Not all, as I'll explain. But this will make perfect sense to start talking about as we're doing. And then Karg is up here. And so, and it's because if you're really going to open these straits in a way that you can have the flow of the UAE, Saudi, and all the other Gulf states, not just oil, but food, other things coming through here, you're going to need a fair bit of control. And these are marine missions. So we have one Marine division. This is about a Marine division sort of problem here in terms of the size of the territory to control. That's why we're moving Marines. So I'm not at all surprised we're moving the Marines. This is exactly what you would do here. It's not there's nothing secret or classified about this. This is just, if you know about operations, you know that this would happen. The Iranians, I think, are well prepared for this. And why do I say that? It's because they hit Azerbaijan on day 2. Now, why did they hit Azerbaijan? When that happened, I didn't hear anybody on any of the cable channels be able to explain this, okay? Well, once you would look at a map as from this perspective, which is assume that if you're Iran, you're studying this for 20 years, you're planning that if they do regime change, we're going to do something like this. We're going to become an oil hegemon, okay? What is the next move? In the chess game, it's the ground. Where would you stage the ground from? Well, you're going to have to come on the sea. Azerbaijan is a great staging place. It's a great staging place. And once I saw that they hit Azerbaijan here as a brushback pitch, that told me they were right on it. That told me they are studying this appropriately. It's like people studying old chess games for 20 years. They're going down the natural routes because they're they're telling Azerbaijan, don't even think about letting American ground forces use you as an aircraft carrier, as a staging area here. And Azerbaijan got the message. Yes, sir, Iran. No, we're not doing that. Okay, we got the message. And so far, that's been the way it is. So you start to see right away that the stage 3 of these limited territorial conquests here, these options lead to military control routes that start to become pretty predictable. And that is what we're facing right now. So we're now at the cusp of moving into stage 3. And as we move into stage 3, this will be another, sort of a shock to the public and to the world, because ground force, oh my goodness gracious, this was the one thing that President Trump was never supposed to have done. And of course, we've just come out of these forever wars. And there's still more issues with ground forces I'll describe. But in this situation, the amphibious assaults that we're talking about, these are some of the most dangerous military operations ever here. And the fact we're a Godzilla, this big, huge, we're still talking about exposure here. So what I am explaining, I just did a Substack last night on this, where I'm trying to explain that we're about to transition from disruption costs that are temporary. Relatively quickly, you can reverse them, to damage costs, which are much more difficult to reverse. And that's what this stage 3 is really about. It's not just military operations. We're moving to a different equilibrium of the escalation. This is a whole threshold we're crossing. And it's a threshold of the type and length of the costs that we're talking about.
So, Professor, saying all that, I mean, what you're saying in layman's terms is effectively boots on the ground are inevitable. And
75%. I've said this before. There's nothing mechanistic, Francis, just so you know. And I know people, and I'm talking very, very directly as much as I can. And so it's fair for people to say, oh, Professor Pape's being just too mechanistic about the world. I do want to qualify even myself and say, I'm not saying anything is 100% inevitable.
Of course.
But what you're seeing is the trap and it's 75% likely. That's the way I would.
Well, the Marines are already on the way to the Middle East.
Oh yeah, they're halfway there, and they should be there, sort of end of next week. So this is a Friday here, the 20th. I would expect by the 27th they'll be there. They might need a few more days. We don't know exactly here, but we're not far from the cusp of a decision point by the president. At this point, he's planning, putting pieces in place. Again, after being in, sort of West Wings here for different administrations, I don't believe presidents really commit in advance. I believe what they do is they bring pieces together, and then only at the very last second do they actually know what they're going to do. Okay, because I think this is just the way presidents are. I don't think it's just Donald Trump. And I think he is coming to a pretty clear point of decision, called a D-Day. Here, and I don't know when that'll be exactly, but it's going to be in the next week or two.
But that's going to be a political catastrophe for Trump, isn't it? Because he ran on a platform of there's going to be no more wars, there's going to be no more forever wars. I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to sacrifice any more American lives in the Middle East. Well, if he does that, he's going back against every one of his promises.
Yep.
And that means that he will potentially not only alienate voters, but also the base itself.
Yeah, so he is on the horns of a dilemma, Francis, where there is no golden off-ramp here. The idea of the golden off-ramp here, that we're long past that. So what President Trump is really facing is he's facing two terrible choices. And he's going to have to choose between two terrible choices. They're terrible for the world. They're terrible for his presidency.